In 1970, a college degree was a promise. Not a metaphor, not a motivation poster, a financial promise. A man named Robert finished 4 years at a state university in Ohio, graduated with a degree in business administration, and within 18 months had a full-time salaried position at a manufacturing firm that paid, in today's terms, the equivalent of $62,000 a year. No internship, no unpaid trial period, no portfolio. The credential was the signal, and the market responded accordingly. This was the post-war mobility contract in its most straightforward form. Work hard, get the degree, climb the ladder. That ladder is still there. But for a significant portion of the people who climbed it in the last 20 years, it led somewhere different than it was supposed to. And the data has been showing this for a long time. In its most recent underemployment analysis, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York tracked what happens to college graduates in the years immediately after they enter the labor market. The headline number? Roughly 42% of recent bachelor's degree holders, adults aged 22 to 27, are employed in roles that typically do not require a college degree. Nearly half. Not people who dropped out, not people who failed. People who completed 4 years, accumulated the debt, received the credential, and entered a labor market that had already moved on without updating its literature. To understand how this happened, you need to understand what a credential actually does in economic terms. Not what it teaches, what it signals. Not all degrees are equal, and not all college paths are traps. A nursing degree from a state school, an engineering program, an accounting credential, these still deliver measurable wage premiums over their total cost of acquisition. The data on that is real, and it holds. The trap is most acute in fields where the market signal has drifted furthest from actual labor demand. Communications, general studies, fine arts, and a wide range of humanities programs at private institutions where tuition has outpaced the earning potential of the graduates they produce. Both are called college degrees. Both carry the same social signal. They are not the same financial instrument. The credential system flattened those differences. The debt market did not. In 1973, economist Michael Spence at Harvard published a paper that would eventually earn him the Nobel Prize. His argument was specific and uncomfortable. The primary value of a college degree in the labor market is not what you learned inside it. It is the act of completing it. The degree functions as a filtering signal, not because 4 years of coursework makes someone more capable, but because it sorts the applicant pool in a world where employers have limited information about who they are hiring. Completing a degree signals patience, conformity to systems, and the willingness to defer gratification for years. Traits that employers valued long before the specific coursework became relevant. The credential was never primarily about the knowledge. It was a proxy for a certain kind of person. And for 3 decades, that proxy worked extremely well. Because it was rare. In 1970, approximately 11% of American adults held a 4-year degree. A rare signal is a high-value signal. Then the signal stopped being rare. By 1990, the number had risen to 21%. By 2000, 26%. Among adults under 40 today, it has crossed 40%. When a signal becomes common, it stops filtering effectively. The labor market did not raise wages to reflect the higher volume of credentialed workers. It simply raised the entry requirement. Jobs that once required a high school diploma began requiring a bachelor's degree. Jobs that once required a bachelor's degree began requiring a master's. Entry-level positions began requiring 2 to 3 years of prior experience. Economists call this credential inflation. The degree did not become more valuable. The cost of not having it became catastrophic. That is not the same thing. And most people making the decision at 18 have never been shown the difference. Her name is Maya. She is 28 years old. She graduated from a respected 4-year university with a degree in communications. She carries around $41,000 in student loan debt, close to the current national average for recent bachelor's recipients. Her monthly payment is roughly $450. She earns $54,000 a year as a content coordinator at a mid-sized company in Atlanta. She is not failing by any visible measure. She is employed, functioning, doing what she was told to do. But when you subtract her loan payments, her rent, and basic living costs, she saves less than $300 a month. Her net worth at 28 is deeply negative. Her father, who did not attend college, owns a plumbing business he started at 23. He carried no student debt. His net worth at 54 is substantially positive, built through 2 decades of compounding equity, no loan payments, and the kind of early financial momentum that Maya has never been able to generate. Not because she was less capable, because she entered the economy 4 years later, carrying a balance instead of building one. Maya followed every instruction she was given. The instructions were not designed for the economy she graduated into. Now here is the psychological mechanism that makes this trap so effective. The credential trap does not work through deception. It works through consensus. When every adult in a child's life, parents, teachers, counselors, the broader cultural message, uniformly reinforces the same decision, the brain does not process that decision as a choice. It processes it as gravity. In a culture that simultaneously tells every young person they are special, that college is the only legitimate path forward, and that following your passion is sufficient financial planning, the consensus became louder than the data. Research on social conformity by Solomon Asch at Swarthmore College demonstrated that individuals will override their own accurate perceptions when surrounded by unanimous social agreement, even when the agreement is measurably wrong. Nobody told Maya she was making a leveraged investment in an uncertain labor market. They told her she was doing the right thing. The unanimity of the message made the risk invisible. And invisible risks are the most expensive kind. Pause with me for a second. Because this is the part nobody wants to say out loud. The credential trap is not primarily a story about predatory universities or reckless lending, though both of those things are real and documented. It is primarily a story about a signal that kept transmitting long after the market had started receiving it differently. The people who told Maya to go to college were not lying to her. They were passing on information that had been accurate for decades, information they received from people for whom it had genuinely worked, in a world that had changed around them. That is not malice. It is what happens when an information ecosystem fails to recalibrate as fast as the market moves. Systems change faster than the advice that guides people through them, and in the gap between the old advice and the new reality, an entire generation made the most expensive decision of their financial lives. Total outstanding student debt in America: $1.83 trillion. That number is not a policy statistic. It is the accumulated weight of a signal that kept transmitting. The Federal Reserve data does not say education is worthless. On average, A college degree still produces a meaningful income premium over a lifetime. Recent census data shows median household income for college-educated households running more than double that of households headed by someone with only a high school diploma. That premium is real. It matters. What has changed is the variance. The average conceals an enormous spread between fields, between institutions, between market conditions at graduation. The average still works, but the average is doing less work than it used to. And the debt is not forgiven when you land below it. So what does the evidence actually point toward? Not abandoning education. Not dismissing the value of deep learning or genuine expertise. 3 frameworks, drawn from labor economics, not from ideology. First, evaluate credentials as financial instruments, not identity statements. A degree is a leveraged investment with an expected return that varies enormously by field, institution, and market conditions at the time of entry. Before committing to the debt, the question is not, do I want to be educated? The question is, what is the documented salary premium for this specific credential in this specific field, divided by the total cost of acquisition, including the opportunity cost of the years spent acquiring it? That calculation exists. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York and the Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce both publish field-level return data. Most people making $150,000 decisions have never looked at it. Second, understand the difference between credential value and knowledge value. The credential signals to the labor market. The knowledge compounds over a lifetime. These are separable. A $15,000 Google Career Certificate in cloud computing, combined with 18 months of demonstrated deployment work, has, in measurable terms, outperformed a $90,000 general studies degree in time to return on investment across a growing number of fields. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks registered apprenticeship outcomes. The data on alternative credential paths is no longer thin or anecdotal. The highest return move is not to dismiss the 4-year degree. It is to be precise about which credential, at which cost, in which market. Third, price time as the most expensive variable in the decision. The most costly version of the credential trap is spending 4 to 6 years and $150,000 acquiring a signal the market no longer reads with the clarity it once did, while foregoing 4 to 6 years of compounding experience, savings, and real skill development in the actual economy. Time is the variable almost nobody prices into the credential decision at 18. Maya's father did not just avoid debt. He had 4 years of head start on building something real. If you are 18 right now, or you are the parent of someone who is, run these 3 frameworks before anyone signs anything. The data exists. The decision does not have to be made in the dark. Robert, who graduated in 1970 with his Ohio State business degree, is now 76 years old. If you asked him what to tell a young person today, he would almost certainly say, "Get your degree." Because for him, it worked. Because the system rewarded him when the signal was rare and the labor market was expanding. Because the advice he gives comes from genuine experience. In an economy that no longer operates under the same conditions. He is not wrong about his experience. He is giving you accurate data from a different territory. The map is real. The terrain has shifted. The credential trap is not about blaming the people who gave the advice, or the institutions that sold the credential, or the students who followed the only path they were clearly shown. It is about the gap between a system built for one economy and a generation navigating a different one. The signal drifted. the debt stayed fixed. Knowing that does not undo Maya's loan payment, but it changes how the next person looks at the decision before they make it. Understanding the structure of a trap is not pessimism. It is the only rational starting point. In the next episode, the final trap in this series, and possibly the most invisible of all. The American insurance industry generates $1.7 trillion in annual premium revenue. Most of the people paying into it cannot clearly explain what they own, what they are owed, or how the pricing was determined. That changes next week.